Mr. McCollum's in town, and that has raised some magazine-related issues. So let's talk about obscure World War I era mags in this episode, shall we? Alice is already down there having lunch with the Mad Hatter. It's about time we get on down there, don't you think? Two different kinds of magazines, two different kinds of Chauchats. You had the 8mm, and we had the 30-06, which I now have the privilege of being able to mess with. These magazines are an absolute untold source of grief for either kind of the Chauchat, and I'm thinking that this is the major thing that let it down. From what I've been reading in the historical literature, they complain about magazines, they complain about mud, they complain about things bending, and yes, all three. So let me go to the 8mm one first, and then we'll work our way out here. The 8mm has this funky spring in it that pulls all the way back around. And right here is the first problem. Dense, sharp edges. But the big one is this. This is a track right here that the rim of the 8 label has to run in. This track. If this track has the slightest nick or ding in it, the rounds are not free to go all the way around. This is technically a 20-round magazine. However, by the time you bring this many rounds all the way around the corner and you reeve this spring all the way up, you are trying to make that force do a 180-degree change around the corner. The most I've been able to get one of these mags to run is about 18 rounds. When I was operating this gun, I prefer to load them down to 16 or 17, and I got them to run all day, 16 or 17 rounds. 20, you're not going to get it, because while on paper, this can technically take 20 rounds of 8 label, you can't get all of this claptrap folded up into this thing. This is a neat concept here. This is supposed to come all the way around, and I'm assuming you were supposed to stick a bullet through that and hang that back like that. You can't load it like this. I've never been able to. Anyway, all kinds of spaces in here for dirt to get into, ingestion. We can see here there's a dent. Let me pick that up there and see if you can actually see it. There's a high spot right here. That will have to get pounded back down. And then, if I can stay in focus here, allow me to bring this back around here and take a look at that right there. The back of this setup brings the cartridge up out of this, I don't know what I want to call it, a rim trough, and is supposed to bring the cartridge forward. Let me let this tension off here. The cartridge is supposed to pop up here and actually slide forward ever such a slight. So you can see the feed trough comes up and kicks forward. If you dent any of this, the cartridge winds up presenting itself at that angle right there, and you get this horrific jam on an open bolt gun, and while you're trying to clear it, the bolt comes forward, it chambers the next round in succession, and it goes off. Ah! Pull the backer plate off, and we take this spring out, which looks, I don't know, modern art, very French, oui, oui. Theoretically, the follower should be able to go all the way around. Now, I'm going to tell you that there are no bad 8mm label mags in this shop because I've gone through them all. I've gone through them, so I can't show you a screwed up one. Wait till we get to the 30-06 ones. So, dirt can hide in this groove. Dirt can hide in the rim recess. You can have dents. There are all manner of things that'll take this out, and I swear to God, you can dent it by going like that. Since this thing is sheet metal, everything is sharp. Now, I've gone through for the gentleman that owns this, and I've cleaned most of these sharp edges off, but the first time I started messing with these magazines, I was a bloody mess. So there's two different ways to load this one. Here, I've got the room. I can come all the way back around again and theoretically pin this, and I'm going to use one of those 30-06s to pin it. There's theoretically enough room in here for 20 rounds, but I think 20 rounds is if you're all the way up here, but let's find out. So the first time I load this, I want to do it this way. And this is how I found it to be better. Remember, we have to be back here in the rim groove. So you push down, grab it, and you only leave enough space to get the round into the rim groove. Now, one thing I want to demonstrate is, as the round comes up, it'll move forward. Watch. Bang. You see it go forward? If it doesn't go forward like that, and the tip is now proud of this, the gun won't work. It just won't work. You get this horrendous jam, and while you're clearing the malfunction, the bolt comes forward and a live round goes off. Open bolt guns are scary. 3, 4, and you see how the force from the follower is being pushed up. That will become an issue as we get around the corner. 5. You have to get all the way back and get into that groove. 6, 7, 8. What a pain in the neck. My theory is, and like I said, I don't know the historical aspects of this, but my theory is that these mags were probably loaded in the rear area, brought forward, used once, and dropped on the ground. And then somebody would come back around, grab them, take them back to the rear. They'd find out if they were any good or not. And if they weren't, they would just chuck them. I hate to say that, but that's what I think they did. Okay. Gotta pull that back out of the way a little bit more. Now, as we're coming around the corner here, you can see that I've got to move that force around the corner to make this mag stack. The 8 Lebel was basically obsolete a year before they brought it out, I'm guessing. And its lineage is a little... They did the best they could with what they had to work with, and they were in a hurry, and they were locked in a life and death struggle here, so... They did the best they could. Just to get my reloading press to reload this stuff was... It was difficult because the rims are so big. I made a Dillon RL 550 actually load one of these things. Crazy. Okay, so we got to get that all the way around there. I'm going to stop right here for a second because I'm cutting my fingers. Okay, right now... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 so far. And I'm thinking I'm going to come as far around as I can. And I will probably get out there to the range. Let's see, 18. That's it. That's all the rounds you're going to be able to get in it. I think. I know my hand's in the way here, but I'm holding back a tremendous amount of force. So now you're asking this follower to come all the way around the corner. That's it. It's not going to collapse. You know, maybe we can get one more in there. Nope. You're not going to be able to make it fit. That's all you're going to get in this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's an 8th one hiding. 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I was able to shoehorn 19 in here. I have never been able to make any of the shows I've ever worked strip that top round, that 19th round. Never been able to get one to do it. I always run it with 18, and it's better with 16. So when you see some of the previous videos of me shooting it, you'll see it's only loaded like right about there. What a pain in the neck. Meanwhile, there's a lot of load on this. I mean, we are stressing. These wings are bending. I mean, watch that flex right there. Look at that. I don't know what to tell you, man. For the time, it was advanced, space age stuff, and it's starting to show. In this particular case here, I've pinned the follower and run the rounds in. So let's see what's actually in this thing. So if you did it the way it's set up, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's starting to get easier here. Meanwhile, the recoil system has to come through and do all of this grunt work I'm doing, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You cannot get 20 rounds in this mag. It will not go. Let's think French logistics. They had just invented a high-speed cartridge to feed a tubular-fed Lebel in 8-round increments. So now they're making a new magazine that will hold 2 8-round packs of Lebel. So let's look at what that looks like. You bring the follower around the corner, bring it around here, pin it with another round, pin it all the way back, and then load 2. Now we dump 2 8-round battle packs out on the ground, and we just start loading this thing. Okay, you got to have the rear of that rim in there. It's not as easy as it looks. That rim has to go in like that. So I'm thinking that if we hold it up in the air like this, it might be a little bit better. No. So I have obviously not learned that loading technique, but we'll get there. Right? Here we go. What the hell, man? Can you imagine doing this when it's 40 degrees outside and it's been raining for a solid month? I don't think so. I don't think you're doing this up in a trench. I don't know. We should go outside in the mud and see whether or not we can do this or not. Okay, so if you ride that cartridge, it seems to work better. And it's easier and it's not cutting my fingers up. Now we're into the second pack. Two more. Now, some of you that are familiar with older metallurgy will know you can't leave a spring fully compressed like this. You take it near its yield point and it will lose its tension. So now we have that loaded. We pull this out. Bang. We've got a magazine that's got a lot of give in it. The force is coming around the corner. The last round, when it comes up, is moving forward like it's supposed to. And now we've got good presentation to ride over the feed ramp inside the Chauchat. And honest to God, doing the forensics on this was designed to be loaded with 2 8mm Lebel rifle battle packs. That's I'm just saying. This is the 30-06 version of this magazine. And this thing is a disaster. This one has not been conserved. It's got a lot of rust on it. I don't know how to adequately show you. I'm going to try to highlight this here. How beat up this thing is down the side. There's a large dent here. There isn't a consistent spacing from front to back all the way across. This should be the distance of the length of a 30-06 shell plus like nothing. So in this particular case, this follower won't even go in here. Hang on, let's use the follower for the right one, shall we? That follower will not even go in. And that cheesy spring is not going to push that up. As opposed to, say, this one that I've already worked on. This follower will go in this mag and slide all the way to the top. Well, I got a little bit cocked there. There we go. This will come all the way in, and it should be free to move all the way across. So one of the things that I came up with in an attempt to repair these is I made a gizmo here out of a piece of plywood, and I replicated the curvature and everything. And what it allowed me to do was stick this in the back of the mag here like this and drive this in. Now with that driven in, it gives me a surface on which to knock down the high spots, polished hammers, guys. Knock down the high spots, and then I made a very, very sharp screwdriver prying tool where I could lift things that needed to be lifted and bring out any areas that needed to be moved. Now this thing is soft as a marshmallow. And you see, I'm not even swinging it. I'm just dropping a hammer on it and I'm moving the contours around. This other mag, I doubt I'll even be able to even get the back end of this thing in here right off the bat. And it had to be this big. So the first thing I noticed right here, the distance from here to here is not large enough. The way to solve that is to just tip this up, set the hammer right there, and pop it. And that's all the harder I had to hit it. This is absolute reformulated cheese right there. So if we do that, I then predict a little bit more, so you see it's going in now. That's all the harder I had to hit that to be able to get that thing to go in. It's not, this thing is, I don't know. So then I also made a wedge-shaped piece of wood that would allow me to sit down inside the grooves here and drive down the high spots. Because the problem is that as this mag gets fat, it doesn't just get fat in a vacuum, it gets fat and shorter. So as it gets larger, the ends come in, and that gets you in trouble too. So I'm not going to do this entire mag here while we're talking about it, but my God. So a little bit of maintenance. And I'm thinking some guy in a mud pit up in the front lines does not have these wooden tools, does not have these hammers, does not have this air-conditioned shop and nice clean bench with all these available tools. So these mags, I swear to God, are like the original AR-15 mags. They had to be single-use only. Run them and drop them. And I got to tell you, all the ones that are in this shop look like they've been ran and dropped. Most of the stuff done in the U.S. military is done in increments of a 5-round M-block stripper clip. And it looks like it. So I've pulled this mag down and pinned it, knowing fully well that if I were to pull this round out right now, that spring would run this thing up with enough force it would probably eject the follower. There's a relatively well-known man that owns this mag that would probably prefer that I didn't do that. But you can load it this way, but it's kind of nutsoid here because that one just went in backwards. I mean, this is crazy. So you could do this. No, it really couldn't. They're trying to turn around and face the wrong way. I'm going to try this way. Nope. So even with the follower, it just doesn't appear like it was very well thought out. Okay. There's 5, 6. Yes, he can count. 7, 8, 9. 10. See, this is a real total pain in the butt because there's no pressure holding them in the right way. 11, 12. Actually, that's 13. 14, 15, and the 15th one goes in tight, and there is no more room. This is a 15-round mag. Sorry, boys and girls, that's my take on it. So to summarize all this, there's the feeling why it took so long for detachable mags to catch on, because there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of forensics going on here. The ability of this system to operate in a trench in World War I was directly related to how well the individuals that were operating the equipment understood how it worked, understood the importance of keeping it clean, and it's not intuitively obvious how many rounds fit in either one of these mags, and we've just shown that it's not how many they can hold. 15 here, it's reinforced, but it's kind of cheesy. 16 here, and there's spots for dirt to get in. There's all kinds of ways you can hose this. Drop it on the ground and you're screwed. Personally, if I'm in combat and I drop this magazine on the ground, I'm just going to throw it across the trench, hope I hit somebody on a helmet with it. I don't know where Bruno's going to edit this in, but we learned something as a result of lessons that we came into while we were out at the range. The other 30-06 Chauchat mags were great, but this one didn't. And it was difficult to load before, and we began to realize that the follower was cocking sideways. It was jamming as it was coming down. So Ian said, hey, it appears that it's not long enough. Well, not only was it not long enough, it wasn't wide enough, because it almost looks like it had broken. Someone had cut the corner, folded this part back up again. Well, when they did that, it got shorter from this side to this side. So here's what I did to get out of that. There's a strip of steel here that I soldered on right there. I soldered this on and then cut it to width so that it's the right width and it's the right height, and rounded everything over. And I did that on both sides. So now what you're going to see here, the original guys, they went in and brazed all this. I just did it with soft solder because this joint is enormous. So what we've got here is this tail here is just a little bit longer. And this tail is just a little bit longer. It's still only a 15 round mag for the other things we talked about. But once I did that, this now can slide up inside the magazine and it does not rock back and forth. And as it comes up in here, I'll show you, it's free to move all the way through. Actually, I have this in backwards because I wanted you to see it for the camera. Let me flip that over. All right, now we're gonna go in there. Here we go. So as you can see, this is coming through here and then all the way up in there and up to the top. So there was another thing we learned, which was that these springs, everything you've ever been taught about how to put a follower spring in a magazine, let me get back up in here, says to put it in this way. And 1911s, every modern handgun is set up like that. I'm going to tell you what, the curvature of this spring, it's curved this way as its natural curve. What I figured out was you put it in backwards. You put it in with the curve going the wrong way, with the high spot going up to the top. So for those of you guys that own Chauchats, if you put it together that way, it'll work better. The other thing I learned was this tab, there's the middle right there. This tab is about 70 thousandths of an inch wider here to here than it is here to here. So this is obviously the big end. So when you put it in, hang on a minute, we'll recenter. When you put this in, you shove the spring in, and then you stick the narrow end in, and the narrow end comes through, and you just give it a little tap with your persuader there, and then that little button will pop through. Bang, and now you're there. Let's see if we can get some cartridges in this thing. So now I've got the mag mounted back up here in my universal work holding system, and we can pop that in, and we're going to find out now. Now this is the steel core stuff, and not steel core, I'm sorry, steel case, but it's the later iteration of it, and it doesn't have any lacquer on the outside of it, or not very much. And this stuff is slicker than snot, I gotta tell you. Ian swears by it. He specified this ammo for Project Lightning. He actually specified it. Okay, so I'm gonna do a slight reposition here and rock this backwards, because I don't want these rounds to fall out as I'm dragging the follower down, right? So we're gonna go for the 15 like we've talked about before. And I have a strange suspicion that this is gonna work a lot better. And one goes in there. Done a lot of bending. The other 4 mags that I did worked well. And the corrugations in this, we hadn't talked about before, the corrugations in this actually add a 3rd dimension to the width of this and makes these magazines remarkably stiff. So I think part of the bust they get is that they had never been set up, because the rest of them appear to have ran. I haven't seen any of the Lightning footage yet, but they appear to have ran. And there we go. We got it all the way full. And that, I think, is going to be a winner. Well, I hope that explained a couple of things, because I'm going to tell you what is exhausting to film, but as always, a pleasure being with you guys, and keep them clean and change them often. Have you ever been doing a task for a significant other that required you to have your head down and be totally in your game, and then you get a phone call or an email from the person you're doing the task for, your wife, your girlfriend, significant other, asking you why you're not done yet? Why aren't you home yet? Well, I'm not done, or I'm not home because I'm not doing what I have to do to go home, because I'm talking to you, or I'm emailing you. Guys, I've got over 100 email conversations open right now. So when you send me a piece of email, you better darn well put done, what's wrong, and your last name in the header. If you don't do that, your chances of having a conversation with me are kind of long. Also, I'm not where you start your research. I'm the guy that ties it all together for you. So I'm not the first person you ask the question about, how do I do this or how do I do that? All right, you guys got to cut me a little slack here. I'm getting buried underneath all this information, And a lot of people want me to solve a lot of problems for free when they have not taken any time to help themselves. You got to help me help you. I implore you. Thank you very much.